The group of missing Toronto producer Stewart has been found in the waters off the Florida Keys. What was intended to be one more striking part in his uncommon excursion veered off in a strange direction, killing movie producer and moderate burglarized Stewart. Go along with us as we uncover the subtleties of Stewart's last jump, uncovering the disastrous and puzzling episode that unfurled underneath the sea's surface, and addressing the inquiries that encompass his awkward downfall. Ransack. Stewart was brought into the world on December 28, 1979. In Toronto, Canada. Since the beginning, he fostered a profound energy for the normal world, especially the sea and its occupants. He had been as agreeable in water as ashore at whatever point we went setting up camp. He was the first in the water, and the first one was something in quite a while. Handa. Frog, a turtle. Anything his dad says. He would go through hours swimming, investigating each edge of the lake, and when he was 13, he persuaded the whole family to get their scuba certificate. He needed to go further to remain down longer. He turned into a scuba jumping coach at 18 years old. This interest with marine life would turn into the main thrust behind his noteworthy vocation as a producer, preservationist, and shark promoter. Stewart went to the College of Western Ontario, where he concentrated on science. He likewise started some work as a natural life picture taker, which drove him to his most memorable significant acknowledgement about the climate. I'd heard creatures were jeopardized and all that kind of stuff. However, it never truly influenced me in any capacity. He says it was only after I was in Borneo and I saw proboscis monkeys getting infringed on by palm oil ranches, and was in the Galapagos and found sharks getting long-lined that was huge. These encounters touched off his craving to reveal insight into the basic issues confronting our seas and rouse others to make a move. He perceived the force of narrating and the mechanism of film to interface individuals with the magnificence and delicacy of marine environments. With the arrival of his most memorable pivotal narrative, Sharkwater, in 2006, burglarized Stewart turned into a superstar in the protection world. In Sharkwater, Stewart left on a 4-year excursion across the globe, visiting 12 nations. For example, Costa Rica, the Galapagos Islands, and the Bahamas. The mission behind this excursion was to catch spellbinding submerged film and uncover the dull and fierce real factors of shark finning and the overwhelming effect it has on shark populaces and sea environments. Upon its delivery, Sharkwater had a critical effect. It got boundless praise, won in excess of 40 honors overall, and broke the Canadian film industry records, and in particular, it accomplished Stewart's objective of changing the worldwide demeanor towards sharks. The narrative filled in as a reminder, lighting a worldwide development for shark protection. January 31, 2017, began like some other day for Stewart. On that day, he boarded the plungeboat Pisces on the little island of Isla Morata, which is found near Key Largo, Florida. His objective, the Sovereign of Nassau, exceptionally old Canadian steam transport, sitting 70 meters 230 feet beneath the outer layer of the water. All the more explicitly, he wanted to catch film of the tricky sawfish that purportedly swam through the depressed wreck. The sawfish was once normal in the tropical waters of the Atlantic, with a 5-foot saw connected to a 20-foot fish. Like such countless sharks and beams anyway, the sawfish has been pursued to approach termination. Today, it just shows up to jumpers prior to evaporating once again into the sea. It was Stewart's central goal to get a sawfish on film that day, much to his dismay. Their destiny that looked for him. Joined by a little group comprising of the boat's commander David Wilkerson, companion and partner Brock Cahill, plunge educator Peter Sodas, and Peter's significant other Claudia, who is a specialist, the 37-year-old producer bird, further than he at any point had prior to expecting to catch. The excellence of the sawfish and shed light on the basic issues confronting our seas. Tragically, Stewart didn't track down the sawfish on both of the two arranged endeavors that day when they surfaced from the second jump. The group acknowledged they'd left a catching snare on the wreck, connected to a float on a superficial level. Stewart and Sodas chose to jump again to recover it. As they re-emerged from the third plunge soon after 5 p.m., Stewart offered the okay hint. However, not long after, a urge to get a move on consumed the space as Sodas started moving into the boat. It was clear he wanted clinical consideration. He passed out momentarily, and individuals on the boat hurried to get him oxygen. When they thought back to the water, Stewart had vanished underneath the waves, where Ransack Cahill shouted in alarm. The insight about Stewart's vanishing spread like quickly lighting, a worldwide overflow of help. Salvage groups, volunteers, and individual traditionalists coordinated in a frantic endeavor to find him and return him to somewhere safe. The hunt activity arrived at phenomenal levels, utilizing trend-setting innovation and a persevering pursuit to find Stewart. Each lead, each snippet of data was carefully dissected, expecting a cutting-edge. Days transformed into evenings, and trust swayed among misery and good faith. Stewart's family, companions, and fans stuck to the conviction that he would re-emerge fit as a fiddle. He was godlike. Imagine a scenario in which he had remained above water and basically been taken by the bay stream. There was no conceivable way he wasn't on a boat brimming with hot school co-eds in the Bahamas drinking coconuts, says Julie Anderson, one of Stewart's dear companions and partners. Their unfaltering confidence in the common assurance of the hunt groups turned into an encouraging sign during those frightening days after a broad pursuit of very nearly 60 square miles of sea by 2 Coast Gatekeeper helicopters, multi-organizations, and the overall population. Stewart's body was found on Friday, February 3, 2017, only minutes after skipper Jeffrey Jansen, administrator of U.S. Coast Gatekeeper Area, Key West, had reported the multi-organization search was finishing up. Stewart's body was seen as exceptionally near where he vanished, in 217 feet 4 meters of water. What befell him for the stewards, the way that their child had passed on in a basic scuba jumping mishap, simply didn't seem okay. They'd seen him as a youngster, nearly events tossing on certain blades, and a cover taking a full breath and swimming the length of a lake later. Stewart used to go off and film for 3.5 years at a time. We'd get these enigmatic texts saying, "Gracious hello, I'm in Borneo, and I'm plunging with Dave, and it's wonderful, and I saw some astonishing stuff. My folks stress constantly definitely what I've generally let them know. You realize, I simply have this conviction that I will be okay, and I'm certain I will be okay." Stewart was a specialist scuba jumper, yet that day in the Florida Keys was one of his most memorable times. Plunging with a rebreathers are a shut circle cleaning breathed out breath of its carbon dioxide and adding oxygen. They let jumpers go further and remain down longer. They're additionally almost quiet and don't deliver bubbles, which can drive away a sketchy animal like a sawfish. To figure out how to utilize the confounded gear, Stewart looked for the direction of Peter Sotis, an educator and the proprietor of a rebreather supply shop. Sodas promoted his capacities as the head of a jump group that stretches the boundaries as they investigate profound walls, more than 600 feet wrecks, and outrageous caverns. Yet he had a clashing standing in Florida's plunging local area. Soft Drinks had a set of experiences that included furnished burglary and selling resistant scuba tanks. As a jumper, he was known as somebody who was able to test the limits of what was protected, making statements like "gracious neglect, we'll plunge further and quicker," says Andy Casagrande, a Public Geographic submerged cinematographer who teamed up with Stewart. Notwithstanding Sodas, Stewart continued trying jumps with him, going past suggested restricts. Most specialists prompt restricting makes a plunge the 200 or more foot reach to 1 every day, except right then and there. Stewart and Soft Drinks drove it further. With different jumps, 2 plunges was taking a risk, 3 plunges was excessive pride. Neil Pollock says, who is an accomplished jumper and the primary exploration. Seat and hyperbaric and plunging medication at Laval College. It isn't so it's destined to be risky. It's that it's truly careless. In Walk 2017, the stewards sent off a carelessness claim against Peter Soft Drinks, his significant other Claudia, and Skyline Jump Experiences. The proprietors of the pisses, none of the gatherings have recorded an explanation of protection. Skyline requested the procedures against it to be remained, contending the episode was caused exclusively by conditions outside of its reach. The stewards needed to know why somebody hadn't been watching out for Stewart when he surfaced by his jump PC. Stewart burned through 3 minutes on a superficial level from the finish of the third plunge until he vanished 3 minutes. Sodas and the remainder of the team had an obligation to practice sensible consideration for the security of its travelers, the stewards say in their explanation of guarantee. Since the mishap, Soft Drink says he has left the plunge business for all time and his organization has failed. Simultaneously, as the stewards were attempting to track down replies about their child's demise, they were likewise pushing forward with his last film. Stewart had shot a long stretch of time of film, yet his folks couldn't say whether it added up to a film. In the wake of conversing with documentarians from the nation over, they met with Scratch Hector, an acclaimed supervisor who had met Stewart only a couple of months before his passing. Hector told the family his methodology would be basic. We need to make burglarizes film. He let them know we will attempt to get inside his head and tell them film in the most natural sounding way for him. The stewards gave Hector their child's recording as well as Ransac's notes about the film, his journals, his iPad, his messages, and the scribblings he'd made that delineated a stylish vision. Hector likewise welcomed on Sturla Gunderson, an honor-winning narrative producer, to go about as an imaginative specialist. North of 9 months, they carefully developed a film out of the many long periods of film Stewart had shot. The outcome was stunning. The film is quick hopping across the globe. Stewart flies a robot over a distribution center in Costa Rica to uncover unlawful shark balances drying on the rooftop. He talks his direction onto a boat in Cape Verde and films a pile of butchered blue sharks. He stakes out anglers off the bank of Los Angeles who are recklessly killing marine existence with float nets and is compelled to escape when they open fire on his group. The last form of shark water elimination was delivered in 2018. Out of one of the film's last scenes, we see Stewart and Sodas on the pisses as it chugs through the water, embarking to find the delicate fish. The sun shimmers off the tenderly enlarging sea. These are rebreathers, Stewart tells the camera. Holding up the stuff, we will utilize this new innovation to get further than ever before to film an animal that individuals have seldom found in the wild. Stewart bounces into the sea. He changes his cover, and afterward, his camera catches his sluggish plummet into the water prior to blurring to dark. After the occurrence, the U.S. Naval Force Exploratory Jump Unit, NEDU, analyzed the Revo rebreather and shearwater petroleum plunge utilized by Ransack. Stewart. Their report, submitted in April 2017, was imparted to the U.S. Coast Watchman, and the Monroe District Clinical Analyst, Dr. Thomas Beaver, led the post-mortem, and the authority report, delivered in August 2017, reasoned that Stewart suffocated because of intense absence of oxygen, hypoxia, at the surface. Beaver expressed, in view of the data accessible to me, as of now, it is my perspective that both Peter Sotas and Robert Stewart experienced intense hypoxia at the surface. Once Mr. Stewart blacked out, he failed to keep a grip on the breathing circle and suffocated consequently. It is my perspective that the reason for death is best confirmed as suffocating with the way of death delegated mishap today. Burglarized. Stewart's soul lives on through continuous endeavors of associations and people focused on his central goal, his movies, his message, and his resolute energy for sea protection stay a source of inspiration for every one of us loot. Stewart's effect rises above borders and helps us to remember the pressing need to safeguard and protect our seas for people in the future. In the event that you found this video educational or provocative, if it's not too much trouble, offer it a go ahead and buy into the feed to remain refreshed on additional shocking stories.